Ajay Kakra, leader with the food and agriculture vertical with PWC India joins. Now, Ajay, uh, the concerns of a rural slowdown are obvious and they are out in the open. So we all know the first half of the story, which is ugly and which is not all that encouraging. The second part of the story is that what will be the impact of monsoon and how will this problem get fixed in next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, so from my view, I'll take a more fundamental view. You know, the monsoon vagrancies, the farmers are used to how the monsoon behaves. The more fundamental problem with the farming community is, if you look at from a farming perspective, it's more in terms of value addition. It's more in terms of how do they increase their income. The farming profession is becoming more and more marginalized for each of the small and marginal farmers. So one point that I can actually make it here is that irrigation actually does a lot of benefit to the farmers. The more area that we bring under irrigation, so if you compare unirrigated area with the irrigated area, there's a multiplier of 2.2 times. So unirrigated farmer has an income of around 30,000 rupees, whereas the irrigated guy can take 2 crops and he'll have more than 60-70,000 rupees of income. So that's what we should be focusing, bringing more and more area under irrigation. The second part, if you see from a farmer's perspective, the farmer definitely wants to have his produce to be sold at the right price, at the right time and the right market. And that connectivity is what he does not get. You know, every year there is a glut and we don't have infrastructure connectivity or logistic connectivity from say Ludhiana to Chennai. So farmer would like to sell his produce to a market where he gets a better premium. But today's infrastructure is not really equipped to transport or logistically handle that kind of produce from one market to another where the prices are good. So that's what probably the lawmakers, the regulators should be looking at. How do you improve this connectivity so that a small farmer is also able to sell his produce to the right markets? That's one area which needs to be looked at. The other thing is value addition in terms of production of agriculture produce. So most of the farmers are looking at normal conventional farming. I would suggest that yes, the government has taken some steps for introducing or promoting the organic farming into India. That should be, right now it should be pushed along and more and more farmers should be brought under the organic farming net. Currently we got only 1.2 million farmers who are producing around 1.4 million tons of produce. But that's really very meager. You know, India has got such a huge potential. We can actually bring in more farmers under organic produce, which is better both in terms of environment or also in terms of the customer palette. People are ready to pay better prices for the same kind of produce that you're having. So it will be real boon for a small or marginal farmers to shift to organic farming. But the only problem is that when you shift from a conventional farming to organic farming, you need to have a 3-year lag so that your soil gets acclimatized and you also reduce the pesticide consumption. That is the time when most of the farmers would require support, both in terms of monetary and also in terms of market connectivity. So that's where the policy maker, the regulator should be looking at. How do you support and encourage the farmers to take up organic farming in a better way so that this happens? The last part I would say that in agriculture, you know, it's a sector which has been evolving. It's relatively at a nascent stage than as compared to automobile or IT sector. A lot of innovation can happen in this sector. So I suggest that a lot of agri-entrepreneurship should be promoted in this sector. Yes, there are initiatives by the government which has been taken in this regards. But what I believe is that every state or every unit should have an entrepreneurship promotion facility, which would encourage young minds, which would encourage youth, which would encourage new people or innovators to come forward and actually take up new businesses in the agriculture sector. And these have got huge potential. You know, today we find a lot of startups who have actually started the right work. But the support has to be there so that the startups can actually become a mainstream profession down the line, say in the next 5-10 years. So that's probably, I believe, the direction should be there.
What you've said, I think, are great points. Now let's talk about today, tomorrow, this week, next week. When do you think the rural distress will get fixed? We've been talking about this rural distress for not quarters now, for years now. Now whether it is MSP, whether it is what is happening in the agrarian sector in terms of productivity, when do you see light at the end of the tunnel for the agriculture sector in India?
Okay, so if you, so again, I beg to differ a little bit on this. My view is more of a long-term fixation rather than a short-term solution. What we are trying to do through the direct funding scheme is a short-term fixation. Yes, the farmer would be getting something, and he can actually look at his maintaining his cash flows. But my view would be that why don't we actually improve the way he is doing the farming production? Yes, we can have through the direct transfer of money, we can have his cash flows improved for a shorter duration. But in the long term, again, the fundamentals or the construct remains the same. So I believe that we need to have some fundamental changes in the agriculture system, both from the production, the R&D, and also from the marketing system, so that the farmer's overall improvement, overall realization for his profession increases. So that's what I believe. It will take maybe 2, 3, 4 seasons to actually improve farmers' condition. But the short-term fixation, I believe that yes, this is only a kind of a knee-jerk reaction. But for the long term, you'll have to think on these lines only.
Okay. The government's still sort of grappling with issues like very slow tax collection figures and so forth. In this background, how are they going to provide for some of the social schemes as well, which the industry expects them to come up with?
Sorry, can you come again, please? I'm not able to hear you.
The social schemes, that the government seems to be under pressure to deliver on, they don't really have any fiscal room on that front. They've also had very low tax collection figures. So what are you anticipating there? Is there really anything they can do at this point?
From the tax collection point of view, that's more related to the industry aspect of it. And I believe that yes, there's a lot of unorganized sector in the agriculture sector, in the agriculture domain, which is there. So the tax collection would definitely look at how do you convert that unorganized sector into an organized one, so that your tax collection from the sector becomes better. You get a better realization through that. So my view would be that yes, we need to have efforts on bringing this unorganized segment, which would be like cottage industries, micro industries, into the tax net. And that's where the entire gamut would be having a resolution. The other thing is the SME growth, which definitely looks at growth of SMEs so that a lot of value addition happens across agriculture sector. Now that's a point where we need to support the SMEs, because these are the ones who will be the greatest taxpayers for the government. And these are the guys who will be right now somewhere around say 100, say less than 100 crores. But with definitive tax incentives and also with promotion facilities, these guys can grow to say 600, 700 crores, and that's where the entire growth happens. So what we need to do is we need to have the funding done properly, because the maximum problem which the agri SMEs are facing is the issue of getting right set of funding from the banks, and that's where we need to actually lay focus. If we are able to have the growth funds probably provided to them, that's where their growth happens and the taxation also gets resolved.
Question, the closing comments. Somewhere do you think RBI's fight against inflation has actually backfired? And 3 years ago, 5 years ago, we all were making concerns and raising concerns that there is no proper mechanism for MSP and inflation is very structural in nature. The same economists now are saying that look, I guess somewhere RBI's fight against inflation has backfired, and the fact that the rural economy right now is not enjoying pricing power because global commodity prices are also in a glut.
Well, the market dynamics and the market making for agriculture sector, that's really a very complex phenomena, and it depends on a lot of parameters. So I don't believe that RBI's fight has actually gone down, I just believe that for controlling inflation, there are a lot of parameters that we need to look, and some of them would be looking at the demand and the supply. Now, a lot of initiative needs to be done to control this demand and supply part, and that's where my previous point for having a good infrastructure support comes into play. Until unless we have a good infrastructure support and a logistic support, this demand supply cannot be equally distributed across markets and the consumption markets. So what we are facing right now is there is a huge glut in the production markets, but the consumption market, you got demand, but you are not able to supply to those markets. So it actually boils down to a lot of infrastructure development that needs to be done. You got so much of infrastructure happening in the road sector, in the port sector, but for the agriculture connectivity, that's not happening. So my view is that in the long term, if we have to if we have to close the inflation under a certain percentage, we need to have that infrastructure connectivity and openness and transparency in the price determination. So that's where the changes can be made.
Okay, Ajay, great to have you on the show. We'll chat again soon after the budget as well, I suppose, and try and then take stock of where the rural segment of the economy is headed.